What is one of the biggest complaints that I hear from clients and professionals today? It's the lack of feedback that they receive. And if they receive the feedback, the lack of quality of feedback that they're receiving. Today's video on the 21 qualities that leaders must possess to lead and engage their people. Today is quality number 15, and that is sharing feedback, providing feedback to the people that you're working with. One of the formats or frameworks that I teach my clients, and I did this last night with one of my clients, is to show you how to give feedback in a constructive way. Many of you have heard of the sandwich, which is you give the feedback, constructive feedback, in a way that, number one, acknowledges and values the person that you're giving it to. Number two, it also sharing your intention for giving that feedback so they know that it's coming from a safe place. And number three, make sure that it's actionable, that it isn't simply how I feel about you in this situation, but rather that it's factual and actionable so the person can do something about it. So the way that I teach my clients and members of my programs, especially the Fearless Leadership Mastermind, is we get to actually practice giving this feedback. We get to share with each other how we give the feedback, what works for us and what doesn't work for us. And because there's more than one of us, we get to hear the feedback from multiple people, not only me. The feedback or the framework looks like this. You start with valuing the person. So Jenny, what I appreciate about you is your creativity and how many ideas you have. The constructive feedback could look like this. What would be very constructive for the team is if you were to share your ideas with us when we do our brainstorming session. And during that time, we can look and evaluate each of the ideas in the context of the problem we're trying to solve. So basically what I just did is to tell the person what I would need them to do or what the team will find most beneficial for the person to do. And if they are doing something that you don't want them to do, such as, for example, contacting you in the middle of the night with the idea and set some boundaries around that, then you would continue the constructive feedback with something like this. Instead of sending out the ideas in the middle of the night, it would be really constructive for us to share it during business hours. Anytime between 9 o'clock and 6 p.m. is perfectly fine. And then close with also giving the person the value of, again, appreciation and knowing that you are optimistic about the future. I'm excited about what the team is creating, and I look forward to hearing more of your ideas in the months to come. Now, if you were to receive that feedback where somebody sits you down and says, I appreciate your creativity, one of the things that would be much more constructive for us is if you share your ideas during our brainstorming sessions or during business hours between 9 and 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. And that I look forward to us continuing to collaborate, and I look forward to what's going to happen in the next couple of months. That is something that I can get behind. And I have been given feedback as to how I need to show up or what you need from me, versus being told, well, Ginny, what you're doing is not working. The team doesn't really have the time to reply to your emails in the middle of the night. That to me sounds more like a complaint. So be very careful when you are preparing your feedback. Be thoughtful about it and make sure that when you use this kind of framework of valuing, showing them how you appreciate them, giving them the constructive feedback, and then also, again, valuing them and show how you appreciate them and what you're optimistic about, that format of feedback I could receive with open arms, because I hear simply in the format itself that it has been thoughtful and that it is actionable. I could do something about this. How does this sound for you? How did you give feedback? And the other aspect that I want to cover is how often are you giving the feedback? If you're only waiting for the formal sit downs to give feedback, I can tell you off the bat that it's not enough. And if you're only waiting to give feedback when it's negative, meaning that the person is doing something wrong, can also tell you that it's not enough. If someone's doing it right, if they are proactive and they're on it and they have a sense of urgency and they're great with their customer service and they are thoughtful in their responses to customers or to partners, it is also incredibly valuable to give them feedback about that. Because that, my friends, is the type of feedback that you're giving in that case is an acknowledgement. And to acknowledge the people that they are doing a good job is a good thing. And if you're afraid that it may go to their heads and then they may then stop doing it because now they think they got it, and I don't want to make them feel like too big or give them too many accolades or things like that, then question where that's coming from for you. Did that happen to you, that somebody gave you the positive feedback and it went to your head and then you stopped doing it and then you got in trouble for it? Because if that's the case, you may be projecting what happened to you to someone else. So what I would say is give the positive feedback, let somebody know that they're doing a great job, and see how they react and how they respond. And if they take it well, you may notice that they're actually working harder, doing more, showing up more, and doing more of that thing that you said you're doing that well. If you notice that they're regressing and going backwards, then you can have an empowering conversation with them about, I noticed that this is happening. Acknowledge them, value them, give them the constructive feedback, and then close with another acknowledgement. Make sure the feedback is authentic. Just because you're giving the feedback doesn't mean you're going to give BS feedback, because people can smell that 100 miles away. If you are suffering by not receiving feedback, which is also the case in many of the instances that I coach, where people are not getting feedback from their leadership. And even sometimes I've read, obviously, that many of us have, that even if you ask for the feedback, you're still not getting it, then I would suggest that we try something a little different and get a little creative with it, right? And say, the last time we met, you mentioned that I have nothing to worry about, that I have nothing to work on. And I want to challenge you on that. If you and I were sitting down together 12 months from now, and I have been wildly successful, what have I done that I'm not doing right now? And let the person answer you. That's part of using our creativity as leaders. So when you ask your manager, your leader, for feedback and you get nothing, you can also reply with, why don't you take some time and think about it? I'm sure that you will come up with something. And maybe the next time we sit down, you can share that with me. If that's another tactic you can use. If that works, then you're good to go. If that doesn't work, then we can have a different type of conversation, right? Because then the person may have some real feedback that they may be afraid to give you. So we don't know, and we're not going to make assumptions, but at least that would be the first couple of steps that I would recommend. And then we would take it from there based on the outcome of that conversation. I hope this has been helpful for you. If it has, make sure that you begin to implement regular feedback moving forward. If you haven't, if you have, keep up the good work. Keep giving people the feedback that they need to know that they're doing a good job, or to rectify an action that needs to be improved. Because if that continues, the person will not be successful, which means your team won't be successful. The company and the organization will suffer as a result. It takes courage to give feedback, especially when it isn't positive feedback necessarily. And so as a healing leader, it is our responsibility to create those safe spaces where we can express truly what is happening and how we can help the people around us. By keeping our mouths shut when there is indeed information that's valuable to be shared with the people who needs to hear it, we are not being courageous. We are taking the easy way out. And as an empowering leader, you can only imagine that that's not going to be very constructive. So I hope this is a topic that you take seriously, because I know I take this very seriously. I know how much The feedback has helped me in my career. And my managers have been extremely open and candid with me about how they think I can get to my next level. And that was one of the questions I used to ask them. How do I get to my next level? And when you ask an open-ended question like that, you will get a good answer. So the quality of the questions that you're asking also matters. If you ask close-ended question, am I doing a good job? That's close-ended, yes or no. But if you ask, how am I doing in this particular area of my role, the person will give you a more specific answer. So the quality of your questions will also determine the quality of the answers that you receive. So make sure that you're asking open-ended, non-judgmental, empowering questions that typically begin with what or how. And that will give them much more room to be creative and to give you an answer that you will be able to take action on. You can always find me at callwithginny.com. And if you are ready to explore how to develop your leaders to their next level of productivity, of emotional intelligence, of confidence, of impact and results, then let's explore my Fearless Leadership Mastermind program and see how I can help you. And you can get all the details at flmprogram.com. I'll see you soon.